Look, I need you to do something for me right now. Think about your savings account. How much is in there? If I asked you to cover a $1,000 emergency today, a car repair, a medical bill, your dog eating something weird and needing surgery, could you do it without panicking? Here's the uncomfortable truth. 43% of Americans can't. According to a brand new survey from US News that literally just came out this month, almost half of this country doesn't have enough savings to cover a $1,000 emergency. Not $10,000, not $5,000, $1,000. And here's what really gets me. The median bank account balance in America right now is $8,000. The median. That means half of Americans have less than that. But even if you're sitting at that median, you're still not where you need to be. Because there's a number that changes everything, a threshold that once you cross it, fundamentally transforms your relationship with money, your stress levels, and your entire financial future. That number is $30,000. My name is Zach, and I spend way too much time thinking about why most people are completely wrong about how to save money. If you're someone who's been putting $50 or $100 into savings each month, wondering if you'll ever get ahead, or if you're staring at a small emergency fund wondering when the anxiety will finally go away, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing. We've been taught to save completely backwards. Financial experts have been shouting the same advice for decades: save 3 to 6 months of expenses. And you know what? That advice isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. Because it focuses on the amount without explaining the psychology of what happens when you actually get there. According to Bankrate's 2026 Emergency Savings Report, and these numbers are fresh, we're talking data from this year, only 46% of Americans have enough emergency savings to cover 3 months of expenses. Let that sink in. More than half of the country couldn't survive 3 months without a paycheck. But here's what most people don't realize. There's a massive difference between having some savings and having enough savings. And that difference isn't just mathematical, it's psychological. So why $30,000? This number isn't random. It's based on what the average American household actually needs to function for 3 to 6 months. Let me break down the math. The median household income in the United States right now is around $75,000 per year. That's roughly $6,250 per month. Most financial experts recommend 3 to 6 months of expenses, not income. So let's be conservative and say your monthly expenses are $5,000. That's actually pretty typical when you factor in rent or mortgage, food, utilities, insurance, car payments, and everything else that keeps life running. 3 months of expenses? That's $15,000. 6 months? $30,000. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Zach, that's just basic multiplication. What's the big deal? Here's the big deal. $30,000 is the threshold where your brain stops treating savings as a safety net and starts treating it as real wealth. It's where the psychology shifts. This is where it gets really interesting. Behavioral economists have studied this extensively. There's something called mental accounting. Basically, your brain creates different categories for money based on where it is and what it's for. $100 in your checking account feels completely different than $100 in your savings account, even though it's the exact same money. But here's what the research shows. When your savings account hits a certain threshold, that 5-figure number that starts with a 2 or a 3, something fundamentally changes in how you make decisions. Below $10,000 in savings? You're in constant low-grade panic mode. Every unexpected expense feels like a crisis. You're living in what I call financial fight or flight. Your body is literally producing stress hormones every time you check your bank balance. Between $10,000 and $20,000, you're in the anxiety zone. You have something, but it doesn't feel like enough. You're still worried. You're still one major emergency away from disaster. But once you cross $30,000, that's when the shift happens. Your nervous system calms down. You start making different choices. Not because someone told you to, but because you finally have the breathing room to think long term instead of just surviving until the next paycheck. Now look, I'm not just talking about having $30,000 sitting in a regular savings account earning 5% interest. That's only part of the equation. Here's what most people don't realize about the $30,000 threshold. It's not just about the emergency fund. It's about what happens after you get there. Let's say you're currently saving $500 a month. At that rate, it takes you 60 months, 5 years, to hit $30,000 if you're starting from zero. 5 years feels like forever, right? But here's the thing. Most people give up around month 18 or 24 because they don't see meaningful progress. But once you hit $30,000 in liquid savings, money you can access in an emergency, you can stop pouring everything into that savings account. Now you can start investing that $500 a month. And this is where the math gets wild. If you invest $500 a month in a basic index fund, earning an average of 10% annually, which is roughly what the S&P 500 has returned historically, here's what happens. After 10 years, $102,000. After 20 years, $380,000. After 30 years, $1, $13 million. But here's what's crucial. You only get to that point after you've built your foundation. The $30,000 emergency fund is what allows you to actually invest without panicking and selling every time the market dips. Let me tell you what not having $30,000 in savings is actually costing you. When you don't have a solid emergency fund, you make expensive decisions. You put car repairs on a credit card at 22% interest. You take out a payday loan at 400% APR. You borrow from your 401k and lose years of compound growth. You stay in a job you hate because you can't afford to take time to find something better. The average American has $6,270 in credit card debt right now. Want to know why? Because they didn't have savings when something went wrong, so they borrowed. And now they're paying $1,300 a year just in interest on that debt, assuming an 18% APR. If you don't have $30,000 in savings, you're not just missing out on wealth building, you're actively bleeding money through interest, fees, and missed opportunities. Now, you might be thinking, Zach, I can barely save $100 a month. There's no way I can get to $30,000. I hear you, and I'm not saying this is easy. But here's what I am saying. The goal isn't to get there overnight. The goal is to understand why you're working toward this number so that you actually stick with it. Here's the reality. According to recent Federal Reserve data, people under 35 have a median savings of only $5,400. People aged 35 to 44? Still just $8,700. These numbers are pathetic, not because young people are lazy or financially irresponsible, but because no one ever explained why crossing that $30,000 threshold would change their entire life. And look, I get it. Rent is expensive. Groceries are expensive. Everything is expensive. But the people who make it to $30,000 aren't necessarily earning more than you. They've just made different choices. They've automated their savings so the money disappears before they can spend it. They've cut the subscriptions they don't actually use. They've stopped trying to save what's left over at the end of the month because there's never anything left over. They've treated saving like a bill they have to pay because it is. So here's how you actually get there. Start with a $1,000. I don't care if it takes you 3 months. Get your first $1,000 in savings. This is your immediate emergency buffer, the thing that keeps a flat tire from becoming a financial crisis. Automate everything. The research on this is crystal clear. People who automate their savings save way more than people who manually transfer money. Set up an automatic transfer from checking to savings the day after your paycheck hits. Start with $100 if that's all you can do. The amount matters less than the habit. Increase your savings rate every time you get more money. Got a raise, got a tax refund, got a bonus. Don't inflate your lifestyle. Inflate your savings rate. If you get a 3% raise, put 2% towards savings and let yourself enjoy 1%. Track your progress in milestones. This is important. Don't just stare at your total and feel discouraged. Celebrate every $5,000 milestone. Your brain needs those wins to stay motivated. Protect the account. Once you hit $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, do not touch it unless it's a genuine emergency. And no, a vacation is not an emergency. A new TV is not an emergency. This money is your financial immune system. Here's what happens once you cross $30,000. First, you sleep better. I'm not exaggerating. Studies have shown a direct link between financial security and sleep quality, mental health, even physical health. When you're not living in constant financial anxiety, your entire body functions better. Second, you make better career decisions. When you have 6 months of expenses saved, you can negotiate harder for a raise because you're not terrified of losing your job. You can leave a toxic work environment. You can take a risk on a new opportunity. Third, you start building real wealth because now that monthly $500 or $1,000 that was going into your emergency fund, that's now going into investments, into retirement accounts, into building the life you actually want instead of just surviving the life you have. Look, here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Most Americans will never be wealthy, but most Americans could be financially secure. And there's a huge difference. Being wealthy means having millions of dollars, fancy cars, expensive vacations. Being financially secure means having $30,000 in the bank, 0 credit card debt, and the ability to weather whatever life throws at you without falling apart. And here's the crazy part. Financial security is actually achievable for most people. It just requires doing things that feel uncomfortable in the short term, saving money you want to spend, saying no to stuff your friends are buying, living below your means, to build a life that feels comfortable in the long term. The $30,000 rule isn't about depriving yourself. It's about giving yourself options. It's about building a foundation so solid that you can finally stop worrying about money and start actually living your life. I want to be real with you for a second. As of right now, 58% of Americans report having less or the same amount in emergency savings compared to a year ago. That's according to Bankrate's most recent data. Only 21% have more saved than last year. That means the vast majority of people are either treading water or drowning. They're not making progress. And it's not because they're stupid or lazy. It's because they don't have a clear target, and they don't understand what crossing that target will do for them. That's what this video is about, giving you a specific, achievable number that once you hit it, changes everything. So here's my challenge to you. Decide right now that you're going to hit $30,000 in savings. Not someday, not eventually. Put a timeline on it. If you can save $500 a month, that's 5 years. If you can save $1,000 a month, that's 2.5 years. If you can only save $200 a month, that's 12.5 years. But you know what? 12.5 years is going to pass whether you save that money or not. The question is, where do you want to be when those years are up? Stressed, broke, and still living paycheck to paycheck? Or financially secure with $30,000 in the bank and your entire future looking completely different? You get to choose. Start today. Automate your savings. Track your progress. Protect your emergency fund. Like your life depends on it. Because in a lot of ways, it does. And if this video helped you understand why $30,000 is the threshold that changes everything, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the more people who understand how to build real financial security, the better off we'll all be. I'll see you in the next one.